Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. In this episode we are going to learn about the FastAPI framework and how to create a to-do CRUD API using Serverless Framework and DynamoDB. So let's start with a brief introduction of FastAPI. FastAPI is a modern, fast and web framework for building APIs with Python. The framework is designed to be easy to use and provides great performance for your APIs. Here are some key features you can go through with this. Fast API framework has very high performance as compared to Node.js and Go. Now let's move on to our main topic, which will be using Serverless Framework to deploy our Fast API application to AWS, and we will be using DynamoDB as our database. First of all, let's create a fresh serverless template for our new Fast API project. So this is our serverless framework basic template, and here we are providing the plugins. After that, you have to define your settings and your stage environment in your custom section, as I am going to change the table name to do table. Now I am going to provide some additional environment information in my provider section. Now create a add function file in a folder. I am just copy pasting the entire code. Let's replace our table name. Here we have defined our handler and the package we are going to include in this function. After that, we have defined the layer and the role statement. So now let's just copy and paste our get API structure. Before creating the file, let me explain this statement. So this statement means that we don't have to provide an IAM role for each function. We can just use any function we have defined already by linking that role. Now let's create another function for the update API and done. Create these two files, update function, delete function and get function. And done. Once we are done with that, let's create a to-do DynamoDB table in the resource section and deploy this. Let me install these two plugins. Serverless Python requirement. Now install serverless IAM role per function. And now in the add function file, let's define our code for updating an item in the list. So for the post method, we are going to update the list because we are using the single row approach. I mean, we are going to append the data in the list instead of creating a new row every time a user creates a to-do item. I will explain this in detail at the time we run this API. And now let's define the get API. So simply in this API we are using table.getItem, which will get the list of to-do items for the single user. And now let's define the delete function. It is going to be a little bit difficult as compared to add function and get function, but once you are done with this, you will learn much more about DynamoDB. First, you have to use the get item. Afterwards, you can update the list and then put this back in the table. So in the update function, as you can see, we have defined our validation for the text and the status. And first of all, we will use table.getItem to extract all the data for the specific ID. So after that, we will compare the TID and replace the text and the status, and then we update the to-do list back to the table. Let's deploy this. Now we have our 4 functions. Click on API gateway and click on test And now provide ID and text in the body section. And test. Here we have an internal server error, so let's check the CloudWatch log. So we have to check our logs. Click on monitor, click on view CloudWatch log, expand this, and yeah, so in simple English we have the attribute we are referring not exist, means we have to define, which means we have to create a simple row so the update item can update this, and define a to-do list which will be empty for now, so the add function can add the item. Let's refresh this, and boom guys, here we have our first task. Now let's test our get function. Provide the ID which is 1 2 3 4 5 6. You can create another task to check that is it working, and second task, and test. And now you can see we have first task and the second task. Now let's test our update function. Deploy this and go to API, click on patch test. Provide the ID 1 2 3 4 5 6, and this is going to be our TID. In the body provide the new text we are going to change, and the status if we are going to change our status. Let's test this and check this in our DynamoDB. So yeah, it's changed. Now let's test our delete function. Provide the TID and ID and leave the body empty. We are successful, and boom guys, we have only one record in our team. Now, in the start of the video I said I will explain this later. We are using the list approach because we don't want to consume extra reads and write on every operation. For example, we can use this approach. This will create a separate row for each task, which is going to be costly. For every task this will create a new row, but we are not going to do that. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned something. Take care.